Hey guys, what's going on? It's Coach Bronson here, and I want to talk a bit about giving you some tips and things that you can do, 5 exercises you can do if you have bad knees or bad hips, okay? Arthritis, injury, knee replacement, recovering from surgery, whatever it may be. If you've got to take it easy on your knees, if you've got to take it easy on your hips, then here are 5 exercises you can do that will help increase your muscle and help you work and develop strength in your hips and your legs without causing a lot of undue stress on those two main joints, okay? Remember, the goal for improving, right, one of the number one ways to improve joint pain is to build muscle, okay? So a lot of times we have joint pain because the bone, the ligaments, the tendons that are supporting the cartilage that's supporting our joints are taking more stress because there's not enough muscle to handle what our bodies are trying to do, okay? Think of muscle as a shock absorber. The more muscle you have, the easier and less pain you're going to have. The easier it will be to move and the less pain you're going to have in your joints, okay? So we want to find ways that we can build strength in our legs to help reduce that pain so you can not have to worry about modifying what you're doing and just go do what you want to do as you normally would, okay? So 5 things we're going to talk about. The first thing we'll talk about is an isometric movement, okay, a static movement. That basically means you're going to get into a position that requires you to maintain tension in your muscles. So your muscles are working, but they're working in the opposite of moving. They're working in keeping you still. So you're adding tension, you're adding pressure, but you're not doing it to a point of focusing on the joint specifically. We're actually really trying to focus on putting all that tension and making your muscles do the work, okay? So there's no movement in the joint at all right? So the first one is wall sits, okay? And for all of these videos, for all of these exercises, I'm not gonna do demonstrations in this video, but I'm going to link, because I've already got a library of 300 different movement videos, okay? So what I'm doing is in the description of this video, there will be a link to all of the how-tos for each of the exercises that we're doing, okay? So there'll be 5 different links in the description you can go to and see how to do each of these things. Right, so wall sit, you're gonna sit on a wall, you're gonna get down to basically a seated position as if you were sitting on a chair, but you're going to push your back into the wall and maintain the pressure so that you're using your core, you're using your legs, you're driving through and making your body do work, but you're not actually moving anything, okay? So make sure that your foot placement is such, and you'll see this in the video, that your foot placement is such that your feet aren't too far under your body. The more your feet get under your body, the more you feel it in your knees. We want to make sure your feet stay directly under your knees if possible. That way you can maintain the proper position to get a lot of the quad work and get your butt and hamstrings activated as well, okay? So wall sits are the first exercise you can do. Do them for like maybe you do a wall sit and the most you can do is 15 seconds before you feel like you have to stand up again, okay? Keep working. You want to be able to get to, I'll just give you a general rule of thumb, anywhere from a minute to 3 minutes is a really good time to be able to hold a wall sit. Okay, so if you want to set 3 minutes, I'm going to be able to sit on the wall for 3 minutes. That would be fantastic for helping you develop strength in your legs, okay? All right, that's the first movement. The second movement, okay, is also a movement where there's a little bit of movement, but it's really minute and there's no actual pressure being applied because you're not lifting anything through your core. What you're actually going to do is you're going to lay down on your stomach and you're going to extend your arms over your head and lift them off the ground and let your feet go straight behind you, lift them off the ground. Basically what we're doing is we're working on our glutes, our butt, and our hamstrings to strengthen the back side of our legs. It's called a Superman, okay? So again, you're laying on the ground. There's really no pressure. Everything is supported. All you're going to do is lift your arms off the ground, lift your legs off the ground, and you're going to hold it for a few seconds and then put them back down on the ground again. You can do these one of 2 ways. You can do lift and down, or you can do a hold where you lift and hold it for 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds at a time for a few sets, okay? So there's a couple different ways you can do Supermans. Again, low intensity as far as joint activation goes. There's not a lot of movement in the joints, particularly hips and knees, okay? You're basically keeping your legs and your body straight. You're just lifting and squeezing your butt to lift your knees off the ground. Okay, so that's a really good exercise to do as well. Not only does it work your butt and your hamstrings, but it helps work some of your shoulders and just what we call the posterior chain, which is all the muscles going down your full body. Okay, so it's a full body back workout, if you want to think of it that way. All right. In the description, there will also be some modifications on Supermans. If you find it difficult and you need a place to start, there's some options on how you can work your way up into doing a full Superman from not having been able to do them at all. Okay. The third exercise, banded hip flexor pulls. Okay. Now, this one does have a little bit of hip movement in it and a little bit of knee movement in it, but it's what we call a negative, right? So it's a contraction of the hip flexor primarily. So we're not actually putting any pressure on the hip because there's no weight on your back forcing you down. And we're not squatting, we're not deadlifting, anything like that. And we're not putting pressure into our knees because our knees are pulling and not pushing, right? So there's no weight getting pulled down, getting pushed down on top of our knees. So there's some movement, but it's very low intensity movement. And the focus is on the front of the leg where your hips connect. So you're working the upper quad and you're working your hip flexors to add to some hip strength. Hip strength is one of the things that we want to focus on to improve hip pain or reduce hip pain. Okay. So again, if you'll need a band, you'll need some kind of resistance band in order to do banded hip flexor pulls. But as you see in the video, it doesn't have to be a lot of tension. Just find something that's comfortable, anywhere from 5 to 15 reps at a time. I would say probably actually, let's go with 10 to 15 reps at a time is something that's probably good. Back and forth, it should feel warm. By the time you're done with the set, take a little break and do that maybe 3 or 4 times. Okay? Banded hip flexor pulls. You get some movement in your hips, which is always good. Just because you have hip pain or knee pain doesn't mean we don't want to move our hips. What we want to do is find a way to move them without a lot of intensity and stress being added to the movement. Okay? You can't increase range of motion and you can't develop strength completely without movement. You need a little bit of both. Doing it smartly is the key. Okay? So that's the third thing. The fourth one is Romanian deadlifts. Okay? And here's why I recommend Romanian deadlifts. Okay? Because again, you are moving your hips. You're not really moving your knees, but it's very minimal and it's very controllable. You can do Romanian deadlifts and focus on activating your glute and hamstrings and your core with no weight at all. Just learning how to do a hip hinge, and that's hinging at the hips without using your lower back by itself with no weight, can improve your hip mobility and hip strength. Okay, because if you're not actively learning, if you haven't learned how to activate the muscles in your hips, that could be one of the very reasons why you have a hip injury or you have bad hips to begin with, because you've not used them properly. So learning how to do Romanian deadlifts is a really good exercise in activating and using those hips. It's a way to improve leg strength without stressing the knees. Overall, it's a really good workout to integrate into your recovery or whatever it is you're doing to improve your legs. Okay. The last exercise we're going to talk about is glute bridges or hip thrusts. Okay. And these can be done with or without weight. I highly recommend starting without weight. And it's very simple. Again, low intensity, a little bit of movement, not a lot of stress. Okay. You're going to just lay down on your back with your feet flat on the floor and your knees bent, and you're going to thrust or drive your hips into the air, lifting your hips and your back off the ground. It's a very simple exercise. When you do it properly, you're going to feel your glutes and your hamstrings activate. And if you'll notice, a lot of these exercises focus on the glutes and hamstrings. Most people have issues with their knees or their hips because they are not activating their glute and hamstrings. What we call the posterior chain, I mentioned it earlier, is weak and underdeveloped in most people because most people don't use their butt and their hamstrings like they should. A lot of times we overcompensate with our quads, the front of our legs, or our lower back, which is why we have a lot of knee problems and we have a lot of back problems, okay, or hip problems. So the more you can learn how to activate your hips and your glutes and your hamstrings, the more balanced your body is going to be and the less pain you're going to have in your lower back, your hips, and your knees. Okay, so that's why these are focused in those areas. Okay, so those are the 5 exercises you can do. Okay, wall sits are static. Supermans are very low movement. Okay, Also kind of a static isometric movement. Banded hip flexor pulls, Romanian deadlifts, and glute bridges are also on that list of things to do, okay? If you have any questions about how to do the movements, look in the description of this video. There's a link to every single video, to every single exercise, so that you can see how they're done. And as always, if you have questions, comment on this video, go to the Facebook group, the Apex Health and Fitness Keto Carnivore, and ask questions in there, and as I'll answer whatever questions you need to answer, okay? If this is a video that you find useful, if there's information here that's helpful, please make sure to share it. If you're not subscribed, don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell so you're notified when I come out with more videos, and I'll see you on the next one.